Hello, America. I'm Mark Levin. This is Life, Liberty, and Levin. Fred Dreyer, it's a great honor.
Good to see you, Mark.
I feel like I know you.
Well, you do.
We've talked a few times.
Yes.
But no, I feel like I know you because I've watched you play football. I watched you on that great series, Hunter. I'm going to get into all this. You're now a broadcaster, and you're a conservative.
It's a deadly combination.
That's a great combination, but very interesting, your conservatism and so forth, that I want to get to. But first, I want to start from the beginning. You were a great football player. You started with the Giants for a few years. Then you go to the other coast, the L.A. Rams. You were a defensive end. Did you play any other position on the defensive line? Defensive end. You're 6'6". What was your highest? What was your heaviest?
I never played a game of football over 228 pounds.
228 pounds. Do you think you could have a lineman today who's 228? If they're fast, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Be tough.
But you would have to be on a special nickel package, I think.
Meaning very unlikely.
Well, you know, the linebackers today was 6'4", 240, and they're really fast. And so I'd probably fit in there somewhere.
And you were really good. I remember watching the L.A. Rams. And the L.A. Rams were really good.
Yep.
And they never got to the Super Bowl.
Well, we did.
Well, you never won the Super Bowl.
We got beat by Pittsburgh in '79.
And we were talking before the program. I asked you if you have any injuries, and you're doing pretty well, and you're in good shape. You're 215. You're standing like a rod. But a lot of your colleagues aren't in such great shape. A lot of them really did get whacked pretty good with concussions. You had several concussions.
I've had about 7 of them, recorded concussions that I know of.
But it's a real problem for some of these guys, isn't it?
It's a very, very big problem, especially nowadays in college, high school, professional levels. The fundamentals and the techniques of engaging the ball carrier and bringing them to the ground is lost. If you take that out of football, you don't have football.
Now, what do you mean by that? The rules are not particularly helpful?
Well, they're not taught. You know, with the Title IX years ago in college, all the coaches just said, you guys know how to tackle. Get the guy on the ground, quit monkeying around with it, and if you can get the ball out, that's great. But we got other things to do. So they spend more time, you know, on different parts of the game than they do actually with the fundamentals and teaching you how to engage the ball carrier. They just don't do it. They don't find value in it. Well, guess what? As time and generations have changed, you've got new commissioners, you've got new coaches, you've got new owners, and the sport has changed to where, to my amazement, you don't have any conversation with anybody associated with the sport that's legitimately concerned that you're losing the sport. If you lose the ability to engage the ball carrier and bring him to the ground, you don't have a sport. And that's what they're on the verge of doing.
So the fundamentals, like people don't talk a lot about the line. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on last Sunday, the Super Bowl. But you indicated to me before the show that game was won on the line.
That's right.
What did you mean by that?
Well, the line of scrimmage, regardless of who the receivers, the running backs, the quarterback, the coach, the owner is, regardless of where you're playing, what surface you're playing on, it all comes down to the guys at the line of scrimmage. That's where you break your opponent's will. And that's what the sport's about. I got an hour here. I'm going to break your will. And I'm going to do it by beating up your big guys. Watch. And that's what this is all about. And there's different ways of presenting it, doing it, preparing for it to have a telecast. And there's different ways of presenting the sport to a viewing public. But it's all done at the line of scrimmage. In '81, when I left the Rams, I worked the remainder of that year. I did like about 12, 13 games for CBS as a color commentator. And what my goal was, as I perceived it at that time, and it's even more true now, was I would explain to the people what I thought was going to happen, and then I'd use instant replay to back up if I was right or wrong. They don't do that. So you've got people, and Tony Romo's good, but in the Super Bowl last week, all you hear is a bunch of blabbing that doesn't fit any of the visuals that they've set up, that's available for us. They're saying great things, and because I know what they're talking about, and I'd say, okay, good, now show it. Now back it up. Come out of this commercial and back up what you said, clever, smart, informative. Back it up with the visuals so we know what you're talking about.
Let me ask you this. So the Super Bowl was won on the line. You say most of these games or big games are won on the line. A lot of coaches may not realize that. Does Belichick realize it? Obviously, he does.
If you take a look at what he did to the Rams, he had 2 weeks to work against that vaunted offense. The game came down to the line of scrimmage. Goff, quarterback for the Rams, spent half of his pass plays throwing off his back foot. He was running. He was out of sorts the whole game. And the pre-snap look that Goff was getting was confusing. He's not used to being put on his back on the ground. He ran away out of the pocket. And when you do that against a team that can run, you've got problems. And so he's a terrific young quarterback. I looked at that game as a setback for the organization, for the head coach, Sean McVay, who's a good coach. But he ran into a buzzsaw, and he got beat at the line of scrimmage.
Just quickly, so Belichick, one of the great coaches, whether people like him or not.
Clearly, yes.
It's obvious.
Yep.
And Brady, greatest quarterback ever?
I'm going to say probably yes.
He seems to be able to read defenses very, very fast, doesn't he?
Well, yes. And that whole sport, see, one of the things, Romo was the play-by-play guy. He's good. He's a quarterback. I wanted to be in Goff's head as a viewer. I wanted Romo to tell me, here's what's going on and why.
But what about Brady? What was going through his head?
Well, let me just finish this one point. Goff had glazed over by the second quarter. He had a distant look in his eye, and he was not self-aware. He was self-conscious.
Do we call that choking?
Well, you can put any tag you want on it, but the point was he was punched, and he was in trouble the whole game, as was the whole team. They played good defense, the Rams. They confused Brady a little bit. And as far as Brady goes, not only is he just so sharp, he knows what he wants to do and has the ability to manipulate the defense to get what he wants.
It's remarkable. Although I must say, from my perspective, as a pedestrian viewer, it was kind of boring. But as you explain it now, the fighting going on in the trenches and so forth, that would have been an interesting, different look.
They don't show anything, Mark. They don't show you the game, and that's what's so frustrating.
What about the knee taking? There seems to be a lot less of that, and the ratings are starting to pick up because people are saying, okay, there's a lot less of that. Gladys Knight, magnificent rendition.
Yeah, she's great.
The national anthem. What about those who were taking knees before? Where do you come down on that?
Well, here's what's interesting. Kaepernick, a couple of years ago, takes a knee. If I'm the owner of the 49ers, I take the service elevator, I go down to the field, I ask him, what are you doing? He says, well, I'm protesting white police officers killing black people. I said, good. Now, leave the field, take your stuff off, wait for me till the game's over with. And here's what we'll do. We'll meet the press together. You see, it's important for the franchise to support their quarterback because that's the face of the franchise, as witnessed the Super Bowl. And what you want to make sure that you're doing is you give Kaepernick plenty of opportunity to articulate his actions. He was never interviewed after that. We never heard from him ever. We don't know what his complaint was. We heard it circuitous way, in a way that said that he was upset because there's such racism. And by the way, there was a comment made that was hilarious. And he says, we're going to kneel until someone solves this race issue. They're going to be down there a long time. So
but you would have yanked him off the field.
I would have taken him off the field and would have not let it be a spectacle. I would refuse the cameras to continually cut back to him. Get him off the field, get him out of sight, get on with the game, pay homage to your franchise and to the fans who paid a lot of money to watch that game. So the main issue is, here it is. It's up to the franchise to cultivate the quarterback for the reasons that are obvious. But you want your quarterback to be the leader of the franchise. You want him to be the titular head of the franchise. And therefore, I want my quarterback to be able to articulate specifically what he wants.
But not on the field.
Not on the field.
That's a football game.
Let's go and face the press.
You think he
after
would have
the
said
game.
That's okay?
I don't
him
know.
Off the
Who
field?
the hell knows? I think the reason he's not in football, Kaepernick is not in football, is because the league realizes he's not a leader. He didn't handle that thing worth the darn, And I felt sorry for the guy, honestly, because he's troubled by something. I wanted to hear from him. I wanted to have the organization be in control of the situation.
And I just want to be clear. But you're saying there's a place and time for everything. You can do it, but not on the football field.
Well, of course.
Okay,
yeah.
because you'll lose the fans.
If I'm the owner, I would say, Colin, how can I help you? What is it you want to say? Let's go in this room. And the press will be back to you. Have many people you wanted to talk about this. Talk about it and articulate it. He couldn't do that.
All right, when we come back, I want to talk about how you got into acting, and then I want to talk about, have you always been a conservative? What does that mean to you? How do you think the president's doing? But before we do, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to remind you to check us out on Levin TV most weeknights. On Levin TV, just go to blazetv.com/Mark to sign up, blazetv.com/Mark, or give us a call at 844-LEVIN-TV, 844-LEVIN-TV.